Hello, and welcome back for another episode of the International Care Collective, the podcast powered by University Hospitals Sussex and in collaboration with the NHS Stay and Thrive community of practice. Normally, we would be talking to international staff about their journeys joining the NHS and what they've been through and how they've come through their challenges. We are yet again, because we loved it so much last time, going a little bit off-piste again for this episode. You've heard us talk about preceptorship, so we are delighted to be joined by two wonderful, powerful people within preceptorship here at University Hospitals Sussex. We have Zoe and Kat. Can we have a little bit of a round of applause here? Welcome, and thank you for joining us here at the International Care Collective. We're going to be talking about preceptorship later on, but first of all, most importantly, introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about yourselves.
Hello, I'm Zoe Rothery. I'm Head of Allied Health Professions Education at University Hospitals Sussex. I'm a physiotherapist by background, and my specialism is neurological physiotherapy. But I still do a little bit of that to keep my eye in, but my predominant role is supporting education for allied health professionals across the trust, and specifically in this case, preceptorship. So I helped set up and develop the AHP preceptorship program here.
My name is Katrina Dela Vina, or you can call me Kat. I'm currently the Senior Clinical Educator for Preceptorship. I'm one of two Nursing Preceptorship leads over here in the Trust. So currently, I support newly registered nurses and nursing associates. That includes our internationally educated nurses as well. I myself, I am internationally recruited. I was internationally recruited. I have been here in the Trust. This is, I've been in two hospitals with a background of acute medicine, A&E, and critical care, and then I went into education. And now I lead the program for supporting newly registered nurses and nursing associates across Brighton and Haywards Heath. Yeah, so I am from the Philippines, and it's very interesting to be here and to be able to talk about, how to support our nurses better as well. So I'm a very big advocate for, getting them a really good start in their careers and helping them thrive in this country, in the NHS.
Amazing. Thank you ever so much. And again, thank you both for joining us. We genuinely really, really appreciate it. Now, something that we do on all of these podcast episodes is we ask you to bring in something that means something to you. What's your kind of go-to thing, whether it's an item, it could be just something that you have or something that you do, if you've had a bad day or even if you had a good day, but something that reminds you of home or makes you feel special and, what you go to. So let's start with Kat first.
Okay,
what have you brought with you?
So I'm not quite sure if this is what you meant, but I brought in food.
Love it. You're the first person. We said this earlier. You are the first person to bring a food item. So,
and it's quite special. So number one, it reminds me of home. This is called a pineapple tart.
Nice.
It's what we call pineapple empanaditas back home. It's a sweet puff pastry. And it's especially made by my father. So this arrived a few months ago, brought in by my cousin. And it definitely reminds me of home. Number one is the taste, definitely. It's very Filipino, it's very sweet.
Yeah.
The second one is that it's because it's made by my father. So there's a lot of sentiment towards it, and it reminds me of my dad, how he's done a lot of things. My family's kitchen, where he probably did this. And food in general as well for Philippines, I would say on a personal experience. I think it's like love language for when we share food especially. So I don't know, it might be a personal experience, but when we try and open our lunch boxes and there's someone with us, we normally offer it to the people that we are near to and share the food, and it's part of the culture to commune, to have it together with other people. I think that's one of the things that I found with food. It's not just something to eat. It's actually culture. It's tradition to eat it with other people, to share. And it very much mimics how things are in the Philippines with the sense of community. There's a word there called bayanihan, which is to help each other with unconditionally. So you just don't expect anything in return. You help out your neighbors, your community.
Yeah, that's why we love doing this, because I think every time someone brings something in, it has an original meaning that was the one that you picked for, but then there's so many more background meanings to it, and that's why we like doing it. Just flash it at the camera a little bit.
Yes, this is the one. It's very much made by my dad. We are going to eat it. I've got more.
I was going to say, share the love later.
Definitely.
And Zoe, what have you brought with you? What's your go-to?
I brought a picture of the rolling downs of Sussex, because I grew up in Sussex. So for me, when I go away, flying back in and I fly over the downs and the chalky cliffs, because you don't see them in many other places. So that's when I know that I'm home. It's the green, the rolling hills and the white of the chalk is what actually home means to me. But obviously, family, wherever the family are.
It's a nice reminder, isn't it? And I mean, I've done the same when we're flying. We've been on holiday and we're flying back, and you fly over. So, oh, look, it's home! It's home! It's one of those things that you just generally do, isn't it? So, as we said, we're going to be talking about preceptorship here. We've mentioned it. A lot of our colleagues that we've interviewed before have mentioned how preceptorship has helped them. So, we want for our listeners and our viewers to kind of understand what is preceptorship. So, let's start at the beginning. What is preceptorship?
Well, preceptorship, strictly speaking, is 1 year that we offer support that we offer to anyone who's newly registered and joins our trust. So that might be someone who's fresh out of university, just graduated, or it might be someone who's an international recruit and they've been working clinically in their area but in another country, and they're coming in and joining the NHS and all of that involves. Lots of learning there. Or it might be people returning to work after a period of time away. It's an opportunity for people to feel, I think, that they're joining an organisation that values them, and just having a bit of time to step away from really busy clinical environments, meet with peers, share challenges and celebrations, and reflect, I think, because we don't get much time to reflect, do we, when we're running around in our busy clinical environments. So, really important for our newly registered staff to come in and have that period of time to just bed in and feel like they're part of the organisation.
Definitely. In addition to, with what Zoe has stated in terms of who we have on the program, we also have on a nursing perspective, new to an acute trust, and I would say we also have them to come into the program and be supported. So there's a structured sort of program of support to ease their way into transition, into practice, into to cultures, to teams, that integration of how what is their role. How do they find their place within their own teams and feel that they belong and that they are supported within that crucial year of their first year within registration of clinical practice. So.
Yeah, and I think for me, just having helped on both programs at intermittent points, it's a great program because a lot of the things that you go through on these programs are not things that you can necessarily automatically Google. So you can kind of research as much as you want, but it's that having those lived experiences, like you say, and also that reflection and kind of pushing positive reflection as well. I think a lot of us will admit that, when we go to reflection, we kind of think, okay, what went wrong and how did it go better, rather than actually what went well and how did this make me feel about it. And it's been a joy to see that go through and be pushed forward. So 100%, it's an amazing program, both of them. It's so thank you for being the leads on this and helping our new staff in gaining within the NHS. It's been amazing. Can you explain to our listeners what preceptorship programs entail? So
I support and run the Allied Health Professions preceptorship program, and so within our trust there are 14 or 15 allied health professions within the NHS, but within our trust we have 8. So that's physiotherapists, occupational therapists, speech and language therapists, dietitians, operating department practitioners, and then our diagnostic radiographers, our therapeutic radiographers, and our orthoptists, who are our eye muscle experts. And so obviously our preceptorship program can't focus on clinical skills because all our professions have such hugely different clinical skills. So we leave that to the experts within their teams to support education within those areas. And what we focus on are the really important skills that we need to get through our days, in terms of, some people might call them the soft skills. I'd call them the absolutely essential skills.
Yeah.
Skills like communication, how to reflect, how to be a lifelong learner, how to maximise safety in the workplace, how to speak out when you need to, how to think about your behaviour preferences and other people's behaviour preferences, and how you rub along as a team or with managers. We talk about ethics, accountability, talk about, mental capacity and safeguarding. So, and later on, we might talk about supporting students as we go through. So just growing people's knowledge, their ability to think about all these really crucial areas, and talk to each other. Yeah. And then within that, what we've found is where allied health professionals historically have been in very separate professions and not necessarily always talking to each other so much, although there are some professions, physio and OT, the therapies work very closely together quite often. What we're getting is an allied health professions voice that starts to kind of rise up through the trust, a bit of a sense of identity. We retain our professional identities, but we also recognise we're part of this wider group, and it's important to have that voice at a higher level within our trust.
100%.
First one I would want to highlight and want to thank the trust is the support. It's made mandatory for all newly registered nurses to receive the preceptorship sort of program, being enrolled to it. So the nursing preceptorship module, or the program in itself, there's a lot to it. We've got study days, and I'm going to talk about it in a minute. The study days, we've got 8 study days. We have preceptor allocation. These are experienced nurses who are allocated to the newly registered staff when they start in their clinical areas for that preceptorship period. That's 12 months since they started in clinical practice when they got their PIN. We also have peer support. That is when, as what Zoe has sort of mentioned about getting them into these study days and getting them to sort of socialize, professional socialization. We also provide pastoral support. That is through clinical visits, where sometimes we do coaching with them if time allows, and with logistics as well. And also we facilitate a lot of reflective discussion. So that is through study days, through group supervision. There's loads of things. So just wanted to, Zoe talked about the study days.
Yeah.
Definitely we've got 8 study days, which is a mix of both, I would say, technical and non-technical, hard and soft skills, depending on how people call it, but more of the clinical content and non-clinical content. So the clinical content would involve a lot about patient safety. So for medicines management, we have our AHPs or pharmacists who come and teach on the module as well. We've got our a lot of things. So diabetes team. So we've got a day for diabetes and research, so evidence-based practice. We have sort of our harm-free care team talking about falls, about harm-free in general. So we've got, our clinical nurse specialist, tissue viability. We've got our senior leaders come into the program as well. Our clinical site management team, they talk about their role and how it's important to, understand hospital flow and what the role is of the newly registered practitioner in kind of facilitating this flow, so to better look after our patients. There's loads of other things we have, like the deteriorating patient course, which is, this content both on the clinical and non-clinical side are taught or facilitated by subject matter experts. So we don't really necessarily teach in all those study days, but we invite a lot of subject matter experts, those matrons who facilitate those the teaching themselves. So they do that, and it's been really handy knowing what's the most up-to-date evidence in terms of practice and being able to relay that. And that empowers our nurses, our newly registered practitioners, to be able to share it in the ward and feel empowered and be confident with their practice. So
Yeah.
a lot of things. So there's a lot more to that as what you know. And we also do a lot of training for preceptors as well
Yeah.
as part of
Yes.
the program.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
in order to support the newly registered staff or practitioners, we should be able to allocate people who are experienced and trained to understand what the preceptees' needs are, and to be able to support them both clinically on a cultural perspective, understanding what individual needs are. So there's better support for them, and they are valued as they come into the madness of clinical practice. Yeah.
It's lovely to see, and it's kind of moving on to my next question. Really, it's kind of from your perspective. We've heard it from the people we've interviewed, but from both of your perspectives, how important is preceptorship specifically for international staff? I mean, what have you witnessed in terms of the programs you've delivered and how they've kind of come through?
I think so. Really careful to recognise. I suppose it's really important for me when our preceptees come in on the first study day. I'm really keen to build a relationship with them as a preceptorship leader who's going to be bringing them through the year, and to understand their background, their experience. I mean, everyone brings different experience, don't they? So it doesn't really matter whether you've been a student and you've just been registered, or whether you've been working in another country for many, many years and then you're coming into the NHS. Everyone brings with them experience that is really important to them and to their clinical role and how they're going to do it. So I suppose we value every individual and we value our international recruits. We value everyone else who brings different experience and knowledge to the team. And then we try to blend that and share and bring it together. And what you see is you do see moments when people go, oh, okay.
The light bulb moments.
I can see that would be really difficult. Or I can see that's a really helpful thing to have been able to know, or for me to know. So there's just learning on so many levels, I think. It's really important to me that our international recruits are supported to join the whole preceptorship team. And they're not, that they blend within the group rather than feeling that they're particularly different. We value everyone's differences and everyone's likenesses, I suppose.
I am an internationally educated nurse, and I've recognized and I've reflected on so many things. The reasons why people would come here to the UK to work, that was one of the big things that I've reflected on. There's a lot of things. It could be about their careers. It could be career development. It could be, better life, coming into knowing the culture as well. It could be traveling within Europe. That was one of the things that I found, that people sort of their objective, why they want to work here, and also possibly about the monetary, the reason for coming here. So the money, the salary, and in those things, well, there's a lot of expectation when they came here. There's that massive culture shock, I would say. There's a lot of expectations and the challenges that a lot of the internationally educated nurses that they verbalized was expected, as there were a lot of things that probably, in terms of how things are, it could be both the responsibility of the nurses coming here and also how, as a host country, how we would be able to support that. But it's very important to just understand why people came here and how preceptorship has come in to try and usher that transition is really important, as number one, people are given protected time to reflect, to learn, to practice their skills, and also to be able to transition. Coming into the country on a personal experience, there's a lot of transition. You transition into a new country, whether a new healthcare system, a lot of new things, and how clinical practice is. And preceptorship is that really, I would say it's a really beautiful, supportive program that talks about on the cultural side, which we are really, we're very grateful to have that here in the trust as well as a mandatory thing. I also would liken it to, like driving, for instance, as an example, is a very nice analogy that's quite in my head. So our international nurses are like experienced drivers abroad, and they come to the UK, and then they find, oh gosh, the roads are different. The rules are different. There's a lot of roundabouts. We don't have roundabouts back home a lot. You drive on the other side of the road, which is similar to how you do it in clinical practice, and you're quite surprised with, okay, there's a lot of things. It's not how I envisioned clinical practice would be.
Yeah.
So driving, for instance, and then preceptorship recognizes that, okay, you've had qualifications, you were a qualified driver back home, you're a very experienced driver. However, okay, let's help you. We're the GPS.
Yeah.
Where do you want to go? So we can tell you there are speed bumps along the way, so you need to slow down, recognizing those challenges. It's quite nice to, preceptorship presents that opportunity. Okay, this is a challenge. You may encounter communication as a challenge. You may encounter the different, cultures or the teamwork, the dynamics, hierarchies might be a bit different here. And you have that as a GPS. That's speed bump. You can also tell them this is the fastest route to get to another place. And in terms of preceptorship, you can say, okay, where do you want to go? Is career part of, your plan to come career progression? And you could always, signpost them into speaking with mentors or getting specialist, leaders to come into preceptorship, possibly to inspire people and mentor them. But in all of that, we recognize that people have experience. We validate what they know, and hopefully, we come in that reflective space in preceptorship in itself. We give them that space to hopefully give their opinions, give them a voice, to be able to say, "This is what we did back home. Do you think this could be done here?
Yeah,
I can see that." This is how you do it here in the UK. Is there a way we could look at it?
it's like a safe space, really, isn't it?
It's a safe
You know,
space.
the occasions where I've been able to start seeing specifically our international staff being my focus would be seeing them grow from that introduction, that first session where everyone's very, very silent and will not say a word and we're very shy, and then towards the end and everyone's really contributing and helping each other out, and you're seeing them grow. I mean, it's just a joy to see. So I can imagine doing this on a regular basis for yourselves. That must be quite...
Oh, it's so rewarding.
Yeah.
I love it. I
Yeah.
love building those relationships and see people it's confidence. You said it earlier, didn't you? Confidence is so important, isn't it?
Yeah. And you mentioned, I think, Kat, you kind of touched on this as well about career progression. I mean, there's, it's key for any staff member, regardless of where you're from. But we know our international staff do kind of struggle, especially in the initial offset when they hear about career progression. There is, just tell us what kind of support do you offer within the preceptorship programs around kind of career progression or advice and support?
At a very basic level, it's just about, I think you said it as well, Kat, it's a kind of the whole hierarchy thing is difficult, isn't it? And kind of challenging. And I suppose just understanding that where our teams operate best is where we have a quality improvement mindset, and anyone is invited to step up and present their ideas and to have them feel valued, even if they're not followed through. And I think that can be quite different sometimes. People, for example, I was talking to some preceptees, some of our international recruit preceptees, who were saying it was really difficult for them when they first came into the NHS because their boss said to call them by their name, their first name. Yeah. And they said, I don't know if I can do that. Oh, that feels really awkward. So even those kind of things where you're just trying to work out how the hierarchy works, and it's different. Yeah. Eye contact sometimes is a thing, but also that you might come in as a band 5 or a band 6, but your opinion matters, and you're part of the team, and you are valued right from the start with your ideas. And it has featured quite prominently on the podcast about that difficulty in like the hierarchical structure that our international staff are so kind of au fait and familiar with from their home countries, and when they come here, it's like
a doctor asking them a question and then they'll be like, why are you asking me, kind of, it's that thing, and kind of breaking those barriers down from an NDT working perspective as well.
Yeah, and I think everyone feels that to an extent.
Yeah.
Don't they? When you're new at anything,
Yeah.
you kind of think, I don't know whether you should be asking me that. I'm not sure if I know the answer. But actually, you do, and all comes back to confidence. Yeah.
So in the preceptorship program, part of our program, we kind of built it on how would you say that, on a progression, like as they finish their preceptorship year, we look at leadership and then careers.
Yeah.
So on the last study day, as part of their graduation in preceptorship, we hold a careers clinic.
Nice.
So we talk about revalidation. We talk about study opportunities. We talk about what's out there after preceptorship, just about study courses, and also about if they want to progress in their careers, become band 6s or 7s, or become chief nurse in the future. We look at how do they write a really effective CV, perhaps. We also try and give them like top tips for interviews. It's a very short workshop, and also what we used to do as well, because it's kind of on pause at the moment, was we used to bring in like a panel of people who we look up to.
Yeah.
Get them to share their stories about how did they get there. Did they have to do any sort of modules at uni? Did they have to experience anything clinically before they got there? Did they have to do any leadership? How did they navigate through their own lives with work, family, and also being, going to university perhaps. So we offer them kind of like a mock interview.
Yeah.
So there are still preceptees, or I would say ex-preceptees, who come back and say, "Hi, Kat, I want to go for this position. Do you think you can have a look at the presentation?" So we give them feedback. We give them sort of things to look at from the trust perspective.
Amazing. Thank you ever so much. Now we come to my favourite part of the podcast, which is all of my guests' most fearful part of the podcast. It is the board of joy. Can we have the music, please? So, as you can see behind you guys, you have the board of joy. Now, on the board of joy, as per all of our episodes, there are cards behind you there, and there are questions on these cards. Now, what I want you to do is pick 2 cards each, and then you pass those cards to me, and then I will be asking those questions to you for the next section of the podcast. So,
One from the top. Yep.
Amazing. Thank you ever so much. How do preceptors themselves receive training to effectively support international recruits, particularly regarding cultural competence and communication?
So number 1 is we kind of instill within them the value of inquisitiveness, of asking people what their backgrounds are, validating their experiences. So being able to be open to new perspective, fresh perspectives on things. So clinically, on a clinical perspective, our preceptors are given the chance to learn how to better support them through up-to-date knowledge, but also understanding that there are practices that may differ, and validating that with a internationally educated nurse. And on a cultural perspective, getting them to think, for example, I would say one of the most common things we get is the death and dying, which is there's a very different sort of practice here as to what other, our international nurses from abroad have as a very different culture for looking after patients who are end of life. One of the things is that we get them to really ask. I think asking is one of the things that we really want preceptors to have to do with their preceptees.
Yeah.
We have case studies. We have giving feedback as well as part of our workshops for preceptors, getting them to really practice. And one of the things, I'm doing my PG Cert module, and I've reflected on articles about feedback.
Yeah.
It's an eye opener that different cultures have different ways of giving and receiving feedback. Mm-hmm. So you can't generalize as to just to give them feedback with this model.
Yeah,
it's very different, because that might look shameful for one person
Yeah.
because you've given direct feedback. But multiple studies show that, for example, nurses from the Southeast Asia might view a direct feedback as quite shameful.
Yeah.
On the other hand, others might not. So it's really it's an eye opener, and we're looking at actually getting that as a really major part of the workshop, hopefully soon.
Yeah.
We also have case studies that have, on an internationally, we have one of the case studies as internationally educated nurse who may have concerns about practice, and we get them to really dig in and look at what factors may have affected this. So cultural competence definitely with, understanding
Yeah.
person's background, individual learning. Definitely, they've gotten individual learning plans. So there's loads of things
Yeah.
in terms of the discussion, but yeah, there's a lot of cultural content within preceptor training.
Our preceptor training for the AHP preceptors, we run sessions in spring and in the autumn. And they're 2 half-day sessions. And I suppose the first session talks a lot about what preceptorship is, but also what a positive learning environment looks like. And obviously that includes all aspects of equality, diversity, inclusion and belonging. So, and we talk about, power and privilege. We talk about intersectionality and just trying to, explore people's understanding of what those terms are and how they work day to day really with their colleagues. We talk about feedback as well.
Definitely.
And we then, we also talk about taking a coaching approach, how to ask questions and then let someone talk and access their own ideas and really listening to what they're saying. And we do a little section on compassionate leadership. So all the huge amount of evidence to show that patient outcomes and actually colleagues' mental health is supported by a compassionate approach to each other. Hard evidence that is
It's
hard
there.
to ignore, really strong. So we do a little bit of talking about that and just saying what you're doing makes a big difference.
Yeah.
Also very interesting to add about in the recent workshops that I've done over the past year, a lot of the preceptors that come to the workshops are internationally educated nurses that we've hired since post-COVID, I would say, so 2020, 21. It was like I have them and when they share what they think of the case studies that we present to them, or when we ask them to give feedback to each other, it's quite an eye-opener about the different perspectives that people have about what might have happened with this nurse in that case study.
Amazing. Thank you ever so much. In what ways does a preceptorship program enhance confidence and competence among internationally recruited staff?
There's the peer support. That really helps with the confidence, doesn't it? Knowing that other people are in the same boat and they might be feeling the same way. We both use that brilliant Fisher transition curve that is amazing for helping people kind of verbalise where they are in terms of how they're feeling about their work. And I think that's really helpful because what it shows you is that you're going to come out of it.
Yes.
So when things start to feel like they're a bit tough, you're gonna come out the other end. I think the support from the preceptorship leads is really important. That's the second thing that people say about just having a consistent person that is going to show up and is going to know your name and those kind of things can help with building confidence, and then just having the time to reflect, which we've talked about. But I think reflecting particularly on what went well. We all know we need to reflect on what didn't go so well and how to be better next time. But actually reflecting on what went well, because often we don't allow ourselves that, do we? And that really helps build confidence.
I'm going to come to you, Kat, first for this one.
What
role does preceptorship play in fostering a sense of belonging and inclusion amongst international team members?
I would say that in terms of fostering a sense of belonging, one of the things that we've done in the past is that when we used to recruit a lot of internationally recruited nurses, we put them in WhatsApp groups.
Yeah.
And it's been very, I would say, you have a very big part on that, Sam. So, that fostered a lot of peer support as well for them. A lot of the discussions you would see, the challenges that people talk about, things like rent, or there's a study day in this, and people would, they help each other out there. For those nurses, for those who have been here for some time, they give advice to those who are very new. Yeah. It's really a nice little community, online community
within the community, isn't it?
Yes, exactly. Also, I would say, apart from the WhatsApp, we celebrate, for example, on International Nurses Day, what we used to. So in the last one that I did for former sort of program in preceptorship, we had the accelerated preceptorship specific to internationally educated nurses post-COVID. We used to ask them during the study days, on your final day in preceptorship, what would you want to do? And a lot of them would say, okay, let's cook food and bring them for the graduation. And one of those days, I think it was the last cohort, we celebrated the last accelerated preceptorship graduation on Nurses Day on the 12th of May.
Nice.
And a lot of them brought food, and there was food from India, from Africa. It was Filipino. It was a feast, and it was a lot of music. And I was like, okay, we're only here until 5, by the way, because it's still a study day. But it was, getting them to really commune and socialize with each other. Also, we work with a lot of other sort of teams or a lot of people. So, for example, on an external point of view, we've got community. So I would say for the Brighton and Hove Filipino community here. So they do a yearly, I don't know what they call it, barrio fiesta, kind of a get-together of Filipinos, but everybody's invited.
It does make a difference, and on those WhatsApp groups, I mean, you've been in them as well, and you've seen them. It's
I mean, I actually was an international recruit to Japan. I went and worked in Japan, and so I do have an insight into how hard it can be just to rock up in a country and not really, you haven't got a bank account.
Yeah,
exactly. You don't know where the supermarket is. So I do have I do have that experience, and what I really valued was that community. And actually, I think you've said it, Sam, before. It becomes a self-sustaining community, actually, doesn't it? If you've got the WhatsApp group, there's not an awful lot that the person who set it up needs to do. It's more about people just having a way of talking to each other, helping each other out, and offering advice. And
it's a joy to read through as well. When you, like you say, very rarely having to actually contribute to it. You're just watching everyone help each other.
Yeah, I suppose that gives a sense of the whole trust as well, because where we offer preceptorship on the different sites, just so that people can get there more quickly and effectively. The WhatsApp group is across the whole trust, isn't it? And so that brings people together even more, I think.
Also, to add, I just remembered that the trust also supports having a cultural buddy.
Yes.
So we also encourage that with our preceptees as much as possible or as appropriate. If the preceptees could have a preceptor who is, who may come from the same sort of area where they're originally from, country, or as long as it's appropriate and as long as they've got training and they're happy as well.
How is feedback from our international staff here at UH Sussex specifically used to improve and involved preceptorship programmes?
I mean, we bring together feedback from all of our preceptees at the end of each session and at the end of the year. So, and what we get is information from them about all sorts of things, how we can improve, but also how they've taken what they've learnt and put it into practice. So we've had really nice examples of how people have put what they've learnt into practice. And then in terms of how they feed back what works for them, what doesn't work for them, that also comes into that evaluation. But also it's just really nice to have those one-to-one conversations, isn't it? And I know I've been talking to some of our international recruits who have been through preceptorship, and they said that the cultural training, competence training that they had was really, really helpful, really crucial for them. And that's not something that is part of the preceptorship program as such. It's kind of offered by yourself, Sam, as you pull together all the rest of the offering. But I think they really, really valued that. They really valued the support of their teams, actually. And so I suppose it's our job to not only communicate with the preceptees and the preceptors, but also all the teams to try and foster that kind of sense of community and valuing people. And I think we do that, don't we?
Yeah, I was going to say, I think we all do that. It's like even when we're in our individual forums, you know, it's like, you know, everyone will share their work, but there's always a consistency of, you know, we wouldn't be able to do this if it wasn't for all of you. So yes, we are celebrating this, but it is about everyone here and everyone within your individual teams that are making these things successful. So I think that's such an important thing to kind of promote as well. And again, it kind of goes back to that feedback thing from people and reflection of kind of focusing on positives, what has gone well and what are we doing well.
I think one of the fruits of, you know, hearing the voices from the evaluations from our internationally educated nurses, there was one of the things we did before was put in a transition program for our international nurses. That was a few years ago. It was to hopefully usher them just before, after they finish their OSCE, and just before they go into their clinical areas and start preceptorship when they receive their PIN. We did a transition program for them for 4 weeks and kind of check in, look at where they're at in terms of, you know, how's their supernumerary period going. Are there things that they struggle at? And it was more of a check-in, also helping them out with a lot of things with, you know, with looking for houses and a lot of onboarding sort of areas, subjects at that time. So one of the things was about creating a transition program. Now we have the Pathway to Practice to help support our new to the acute trust sort of nurses that our overseas nursing team is doing as well. So there's loads of things, and that feedback is really valued. We constantly evaluate our programs, thinking if it, you know, does this still have relevance? Does this still apply? Is it, you know, inclusive enough?
But I suppose also we're kind of beginning to work more closely with the inclusion team and looking at how career support can be individualised and working. So our AHP preceptorship has only been running for, this is the 3rd year. Yours has been running for much longer.
Since 2018. I think.
So lots of shared learning as well.
Yes, and hopefully one of the aspirations is to be able to really work together, you know, multi-professionally.
Maybe bring everyone
together. That is an aspiration in the future, and hopefully get people to, I think it would be a very nice room to be in, to just be able to share experiences.
And then, because then that was, suppose, again, kind of develop that MDT working at an early stage as well. My final couple of questions. If you knew then what you know now about the processes of international recruitment, what would be your best piece of advice that you could give someone considering doing this journey?
On a personal perspective, I would say research the place where you're going to. Know sort of things like practicality, so how the transport, like you do your own research about the place, about the rent, where to get food. You know, the internet's, you know, accessible hopefully in most places in the world. That would really help, because awareness is key. Knowledge is power, I would say. Knowing what you also want to do with your life. So what's the reason? What's your objective? Why did you want to work here in the UK or in the NHS? So look at NHS, what it is as a healthcare system. There may be changes. So, you know, it's all accessible online at the moment if you have got those questions. But also you can always try to reach out to, you know, with the people who are here. I think our emails are out there for on the World Wide Web. So people can always ask. Another one is also just to accept that it will be a bit challenging when we start, when in a transitional period, whether it's 6 months, 12 months, or 3 years. It'll always be a bit challenging, and you need to ground yourself in the fact that, you know, this is part of the process and there will be support. I've had numerous support from the trust because I had a very weird experience. Could I share that
Yeah,
one?
go for it.
So when I arrived here in this country, I lost my bag. So this was, oh my God, nearly 10 years ago when I arrived. And my luggage, I was waiting for it in Gatwick, and it didn't arrive. I was so happy, so excited to be able to reach the country and go past through immigration. I was like, okay, I'm okay now. And my bag was lost, and they couldn't find it. We were taken here with 29 other internationally educated nurses at the time, taken here in Sussex House here in Brighton. And I was like, I'm not quite sure if I can be happy because I'm here, but I don't have anything with me.
I'm here, but none of my belongings
Just literally, I didn't have anything because I've changed everything during the layover in Dubai at that time. So I was like, I don't have anything. So I just I didn't want to tell my parents because that would just make them really worry. In the afternoon, because I was like, I think I'm going to cry. And I prayed. And then I heard a knock on the door, and it was one of the senior nurses. And he was a Filipino. I didn't know anyone in Brighton at that time. He knocked on my door and he said, "You know what? Let's go to my house." I'm like, "Okay, why?" And he was like, my wife's got some clothes. She just bought it, and I think you could have it." And I was like, "Okay." So I went with him, but I don't know, for some reason he was very kind. I met his wife, his family, and they gave me like new stuff. And then in the evening of our arrival, there was a welcome party from the Filipino community at that time. I still remember Linda was the lead for international recruitment at that time, and she's there. She supported me, external or internal. The people who worked here I think I've just have a lot of gratitude with the amount of support that I've received over time. And I think that's what made me, thrive and be here and now supporting new people who are here in the trust and in the country.
Because I've almost subliminally been your kind of career trajectory, hasn't it, in a way? When
so it's just kind of paying it forward, but also making it better for them.
It did make me remember landing in Japan, actually, and feeling like I don't even know where... I thank you very much for driving me to the bank and then the supermarket. So I do totally know how that felt, actually. I think my advice would be kind of find your person or your people that you trust and that you... And then ask questions. Just ask as many questions as you need to, because those people will be quite happy to answer them. And also it helps them have an insight into what you need help with. Yeah, just try and keep smiling, because it does get easier.
It does get easier. It does. Actually, thank you so much for those lovely, honest, and thank you for that story, Kat. That was amazing. Thank you. There's no right or wrong answer to this question. It's all personal opinion, personal choice. So please feel free just to be honest about it. When do you feel it's right for someone to stop being referred to as international?
So I think it just completely depends on the reason you're being called international.
Yeah.
If you're being valued for your contribution as someone who has the perspective of an international recruit, then that's a really important thing, and it's good to be recognised.
Yeah.
If you're being grouped into a group of people who is seen as homogenous and not individual, then never. Yeah. It's a very wafty answer. But
I mean, and this is why we ask it, because there's so many different perspectives on it, and it's a hot topic question at the moment. And we've had both polar opposites of that answer that you've given, where some people are wearing it as a badge of honour.
Yes.
Some people see it as a hindrance sometimes.
In my opinion, I would say, that's what you said, if the nurse takes pride in being an international, there will be points in their careers that they would appreciate if they're being referred to as that, but that is a personal choice. But on the other hand, I would say, I think, as you said, there's really no right or wrong answer to it, because it could help someone in terms of identifying individual needs. I would say that the transitions, it's very different for the internationally recruited staff because of coming to the UK, new system. Everything's quite new as well. Yeah. So there is that point of, where people can argue that is something that would make them quite unique, and more support should be given in consideration for staff. But at the same time, nurses, everyone's international or not. We're in the same healthcare profession. in terms of data, probably it would help to look at how much international staff, and then we could use this data to look at cultural competence training, is what you said. We're such in a diverse workforce in the NHS, so definitely there's loads
there's
of
so many
areas.
nuances in there, isn't there? That's the thing.
You look at different areas, but I would say, in terms of probably not labeling someone as international would be, but especially if it's coming from us.
Yeah.
I would say, giving them that opportunity, would you want to be called international?
And I think that's the key thing. I mean, for me personally, obviously, I'm not the right person to say when it should and shouldn't be used either, because it's not within my wheelhouse. But I want people that have been labelled in that to kind of take the power of that and tell us, people who are in my position, or people who are calling that, when it's right, or is it right? And again, there is no right or wrong answer. Everyone you ask, and even the people we've asked, they've given different answers to that question. So yeah, thank you so much for giving us those answers. Thank you ever so much for coming. And just before we do wrap up, the team here at University Hospitals Sussex, they do have a preceptorship podcast.
Oh, yes.
They are on YouTube. We will put the links in the bios for you, so you can start following that as well. So please do, if you're really interested in preceptorship a little bit more, do give them a follow and watch their videos there. Thank you ever so much again, Zoe and Kat, for joining us. We really, really do appreciate it. We hope that you've taken something from this episode, all of you that's listening and watching. And a final piece for me, as always, we are humans before our profession. So if you're going to be anything, be human. Thank you so much for joining us.